All right, we're good to go.
All right, thank you. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the the community meeting for the applications for the AVIS car rental facility proposed at 701 and 601 12th Street South. My name is Cedric Sutherland from the Arlington County Planning Division, and I'm the lead staff reviewer for this project. With me, I have Robert Gibson from Department of Environmental Services, Development Services Bureau, as well as I have Andrew Prabuka from the CPHD comms team, and he'll just be in the background assisting with any technical issues that may arise with this meeting. Um, and so the purpose of this meeting is provide a forum for the community to get a better understanding of the applications for the AVIS car rental facility and how the applicant is proposed to use the site. Additionally, for the this will allow for the community to provide any feedback or share any concerns they may have. I would like to thank everyone for attending. Before I begin, I would like to cover a few items to orient everyone to the virtual environment. Today's meeting is available to stream from the county website via Teams link. Um, there's also a dial-in phone option for those who would like to use it. If you lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your video turned off and microphone muted until you are called on. These tools are located as icons in the toolbar. If you do not see this toolbar, please try tapping or clicking on the center of your screen and it will pop up. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record when called upon to speak. You must unmute yourself by clicking the microphone icon. Staff will not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. When you're finished speaking, please mute your phone again. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act. With that, again, this project, this project comprises several site plan applications to enable AVIS budget car rental facility at 701 and 601 12th Street South. And before we begin, I would like to just go over our agenda, brief introduction of myself, the county staff, any community members who may be here. And then as the applicant goes into their portion of the presentation, they can introduce themselves and the applicant team. And after the applicant team does their presentation, first staff will go provide a brief overview of the site and location, and then staff will then the applicant will present how they plan to use the site and operate the site, and then we'll have time for community feedback. Um, so with that, again, my name is Cedric Sutherland. I'm associate planner with the current planning section in the planning division. With me again, I have Robert Gibson from DES, Development Services Bureau. And in the background, have Andrew Prabuka from CPHD comm staff. If there's anyone from the community here, if you can please introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Nick Giacobbe. I'm representing the Aurora Highlands Civic Association. Thanks for hosting this session, Cedric.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Pam Van Hine. I'm also in Aurora Highlands, and I'm on the Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Any other persons from the community? If not, I'll start with the particulars. Um, the request comprised of several applications. Um, each building is a separate has its own separate parcel and was approved separately in 1997 and 1981. The 701 building was approved in 1997, in 1979, and the 601 building was subsequently approved in 1981. And so they have sep- while they're contiguous in shared space, they do have two separate parcels and were approved at separate times under the PDSP. And so the site plan amendments are proposed um, to modify the parking requirement for the office buildings to allow the parking of vehicles for the car rental facility. Um, Secondly, the Arlington County zoning ordinance requires use permits be approved by the county board for car rental facilities. So that's why you see 4 applications associated with this project. Um, Although staff will review them as one and take them to the board in that fashion. Uh, For background, the site is on CO 2.5. The GLUP is designated high office apartment hotel with and is within the Pentagon City Coordinated Redevelopment District. Um, property is also located within the Pentagon City Sector Plan. And the existing use of the site is two 12-story office buildings formerly occupied by the Transportation Security Administration. And however, they are currently vacant today. And and with that, I'll turn the meeting over to the applicant to present how they plan to use the site in more particulars of the application.
Great. Well, thank you, Cedric, for the opportunity for us to present our applications today and talk about the intended use. Thank you for representatives from the Aurora Highlands Civic Association for attending. Happy to talk to you today. And Cedric, before I dive in, do you mind if I share my screen? Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to share our presentation here. All right. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Well, before I dive in, I want to introduce you all to our team that we have here today. So we first have Michael Schwartz, who's the Northeast Properties Director for AVIS Budget Rental. Rob Calderon, who's the Senior Vice President for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. And Ron Robson, who is the Regional Director of Corporate Design and Construction. They are here today and can provide specific details and answer some questions you all might have that aren't covered by our high-level presentation. So let me just jump into this real fast. And let me know if you could see me advance my slides. Sometimes it doesn't work. Can you see the next slide overview?
No.
Okay. All right, I'll just do it this way then. We only have a few slides. So AVIS proposes to open a vehicle rental facility at 601 and 701 12th Street that will operate as a component of AVIS's existing vehicle rental network in Arlington, Virginia. AVIS has been operating in Arlington for years, and this facility is just going to be a new functional role within the existing vehicle rental system in Arlington for AVIS. The purpose of the use is to rent vehicles to private customers who are visiting the DC area, rent vehicles to rideshare drivers, and park vehicles that may be rented at AVIS's other rental facilities in Arlington, Virginia. The facility will be open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And 40 to 50 vehicles will be rented per day total between the rideshare drivers and the private customers. And approximately 75 vehicles will enter and exit the facility per day. Obviously, that can vary day to day. But the broader picture we want to show you here is this is going to be a low impact use. AVIS has a rental facility at 2600 Richmond Highway, and this one will work in conjunction with it. But for the most part, this is going to be a very low impact use with, in the grand scheme of things, very few cars coming in and out of the facility or traveling to and from the facility. And related to that, we did receive feedback from Aurora Highlands about the preferred route AVIS could take for getting to the site.
Matthew, we lost your audio.
Did I get muted? How did I get muted? Huh, that's weird. I didn't press anything. Let me back up. Where did you last hear me talk?
You were talking about circulation, and you mentioned you had heard our concerns.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, so we heard your concerns, and we agreed that the route for AVIS's vehicles will be to have cars enter the garage from the north via Fern Street and exit the garage to the north via a right-hand turn onto Hayes. So that's a proposed route, and we're happy to answer any questions and get additional comments from you all on that. But we heard you, and we're willing to incorporate that into the operations of the site. So with that, I will turn it over to Rob, who can kind of give you a more granular overview of how this facility will work and how the operations are intended to function. So Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And yes, thanks everyone for allowing us to speak to you today. We welcome the opportunity and certainly any comments and feedback. As Matt said, this is a kind of low impact facility for us. We do plan to stage some cars here for the business in the building. We anticipate about 40 to 50 customers a day coming through, depending on how well it receives customers in that neighborhood. We don't anticipate a lot of traffic around the facility. We don't allow customers to stage their cars outside. It's mainly people that we get dropped off to come into the facility. We do have a facility at 2600 Arlington, as Matt mentioned. There will be some movement of cars depending on how business is. We have networks of locations throughout suburban markets around the country, and we do move cars from time to time through those areas where demand is stronger or not as strong. We won't have any commercial vehicles in and out of this building. There's no tractor trailers dropping cars or picking up cars. We utilize small transit vans for our shuttle groups. They're typically 5 to 7. So even when we do move vehicles, they're not in large quantities at a time. So it's generally throughout the day that the cars are moved. And again, it's spaced out about amongst a number of people that we have. And like I said, we operate in many facilities similar to this one throughout the country. We're always welcoming feedback from our community. We certainly, again, appreciate the opportunity today. I've been with the company 32 years, and we've never had an issue dealing with any neighborhoods or associations across the country. So, we're again happy to have the opportunity and welcome any comments and questions.
Great, thanks, Rob. And then before we move on to the Q&A portion of today's meeting, I'll hand over to Ron, who can kind of give an overview of the internal site circulation and how customers will enter and exit the site.
Okay.
So Ron, go ahead.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Can you all hear me okay? Great, good. So so this is an overview plan of the the objective here is that the customers would be dropped off where the red arrows are shown. They'll enter the building and take the elevators to the garage level, where there would be a rental counter where they could perform the transactions. If you can go to the next slide, I think, Matt, there's a overview of the garage.
Yeah, that's not on the next slide, but I do have it
Okay.
here. This is from the parking plan here, which shows
that's
the same thing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So if you see that little square box next to the elevator bank, kind of centralized, thank you. That's where the rental counter would be located. Transaction would be performed there, and customers would exit out into the garage where there'd be spaces where they could pick up the vehicles. Okay, and customers would exit the garage as Matt mentioned, exit onto Hayes, and any returning customers would enter from Fern. Okay. That's basically the flow of traffic for the rentals. Any questions on this?
Yeah, well, thanks, Ron. I think Cedric, correct me wrong at this point. What we're doing with our presentation, we'll hand it back to you, and we can open up for Q&A and have the discussion.
Yes. At this time, community members can ask questions of myself, county staff, or of the applicant, if they have any. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I'll start off, I guess. Thanks for listening to our suggestions about the traffic circulation. I think that will make things move much more smoothly, particularly on the east side of the property where you have the Penn Place, the Amazon HQ2 project going up. Once that construction gets started, that side of the street on Fern, that side of the property on Fern Street is going to be a pretty busy area. So I think it's good that the circulation is working pretty well. And I'm sure Pam will get into it, but one of my questions on the circulation is how you'll be marking it for cars exiting as they're crossing the pedestrian sidewalk. We'll start pedestrians that way, and then I have some other questions as well, and I'm sure Pam will.
Ron, you want to take that? Are you talking about how to mark where we cross over, where pedestrians will be walking?
Yes, exactly. And there's currently a security booth. Will that be there as well? And kind of what will that interface between your garage and the pedestrian sidewalk area look like?
Are you referring to, and pardon me, Nick, but are you referring to the pedestrian sidewalk as you enter the, I'll call it the cul-de-sac at the entrance to the building?
No, more where the vehicles are.
Okay.
The Hayes and the Fern Street sides.
So I'm just trying to understand so as a customer exits, they'll exit the garage, which is on a depressed level. They'll
Right.
make the right-hand turn out up the ramp.
Okay.
And then exit out onto, right, correct. And then exit out onto Hayes.
Onto Hayes. Okay. So
Correct.
there'll be a stop sign for them to stop there.
There would, yeah, I think that you're correct. There would need to be a stop sign there, and that's something we could look to install.
And will you do your vehicle checkout control down below in the garage, or will that also be up here at the sidewalk
No, it will be at the level below.
level below?
Yeah. Everything will be done inside the building.
Okay.
Great. You know, Nick, we've also used mirrors in places that may not have the best visibility. This doesn't look too bad, but we could look to put mirrors up on the corners so they get a better view of any pedestrians coming down the road, sidewalk.
All right. Since we're on pedestrians, Pam, do you want to jump in?
Sure. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for leading off on this. I'm happy that you're thinking about putting stop signs there. I think that's important, and mirrors would be good. And perhaps watch for pedestrian sign. This is a really busy sidewalk, and there's a hawk light right there. So you have to watch out for crazy people crossing the street. I think they'll be turning. I'm trying to figure out where that is in relationship to the hawk light. But yeah, people got to be careful when they turn. And am I correct that all vehicles will exit from Hayes and go to the right, which is the only direction they can go, no matter what way they want to go. And when they're returning the car, they're coming down Fern and also making a right turn into the facility. That's great. I hope the drivers can figure that out. Otherwise, it'll be a little bit chaotic.
You know, we can offer up maps to drivers. You know, what's interesting
Definitely,
about this,
definitely.
Right,
is,
and that's haven't gotten to the point to sharing condition language with the applicant team, but that's one of our proposed conditions. Which is, you know, sharing literature, and this is something that's consistent with you know, with access and sites of this nature, a requirement that the kind of condition. So that's something we can take a look at and share with the applicant as well. And
Yeah,
Rob, I see you had your hand up.
I was just going to say we can provide that. We could also have a scale map down at the facility so they could see the traffic flow. But yeah, I was going to say also it's interesting because this is a big repeat business rental operation, so you do get a lot of the same customers coming in and out. So you know, once the process is started, you should see the same familiar faces who would understand the flow.
Good. The challenge will be if people just put in 701 12th Street into their GPS, that's going to take them to the cul-de-sac, which doesn't help them at all.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. That will be a challenge, but we're going to position a guard to keep the traffic flowing. I think actually the building owner did tell us they do have a guard in the lobby, so we could assist with that to be sure that nobody, you know, again, parks in front of the building or understands the traffic flow pattern.
So Nick and Pam, this is Robert Gibson from Arlington County
Hi.
DES and Transportation. I do want to just point out that we will probably put the condition in that you've identified for the desired circulation. There are downsides to that condition. As you have a one-way facility, you do create more traffic circulating the block to get to places. That's a fact of that. And I think that we will talk about internally maybe having some flexibility to amend the circulation patterns so that, let's say when that construction activity you talk about it, that Amazon occurs, that we're not locked into the circulation pattern in a way that it's disruptive or counterproductive to the goals that the community's identified. And then as far as I do want to present very briefly the county's thought process on reviewing this application. This application is for the use of the garage as the principal use. The office buildings above are not occupied. And when we look at it from an impact to the community perspective, the approved uses of, Cedric, please correct me, that two towers are approaching 500,000 square feet.
That is correct.
You know, those approved uses are substantially more significant in their traffic generation, both at peak hours and throughout the day than the proposed use. And so from that perspective, the interim use and interim nature of this proposal does seem to be less of an impact than the approved use, and that's part of our technical review of this application.
Thank you, Rob. That's helpful. And you're quite familiar with the streets in our neighborhood, so you know how they work. On Hayes, I mean, you have no choice but to go to the north. You have to exit and go right. You can't go left unless you're going to make a U-turn, and that is not something recommended. Currently, from Fern, if you happen to exit on Fern, you could go to the right, but then you would add to the traffic that's already heavy on Fern with Costco, so we don't want that. And exiting to the north, making a left turn is very difficult there. If there were at some point a traffic light, which there might be with Amazon, then it would make sense to offer the option of heading north on Fern. But currently you have to go north on Hayes and enter from north into Fern, on Fern into the parking place. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. So, but thank you. I appreciate that. Nick, do you have more questions? Because I have some too. Nick, we can't hear you.
Following up on that as well, I mean, it could be that Fern gums up completely and you need to reevaluate and you need to have the entrance from the Hayes Street side. So I think this is one of those things where, you know, flexibility and actually monitoring the situation is going to be important. One of the questions on the cul-de-sac, are there going to be regular shuttles between, say, the airport and the 2600 Richmond Highway facility, or are there no shuttles contemplated for this facility?
There'll be some movement of shuttles, not in that cul-de-sac though. I'm sorry, are you talking about shuttling customers?
Yeah, customers, yeah.
No, they'll be separate, totally run separately.
So this wouldn't be like an auxiliary from the airport counter where they come here on a shuttle bus?
No, that would be separate.
Okay.
Okay. A follow-up question to that is, where do you expect the customers to come from, and how are they going to get to this building?
You know, it's a variety, right? A lot will get a ride, a lot will get an Uber. I mean, there is some mass transit close by, but not. I think there is a subway, right? Not a subway,
Right
train
on the property.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, so they'll probably take that transportation as well. You know, we'll probably have a little of everything.
Yeah. And you said something about some of your vehicles being moved around and put over there, and those are going to be driven individually, or there's going to be we're not going to have a large trailer, which is very good because that's been a problem on Eads, but there's going to be a smaller way of moving multiple cars at once. I didn't understand.
So a little bigger than a minivan. It's called a transit van. It's a Ford transit van. They hold up to 12 people, but we don't put 12 people in it because it's a safety issue and it's a little tight. So we generally have like 5 to 7 drivers that are transported with this vehicle. And what will happen is they'll go to the facility, they'll pick up 5 to 7 cars, they'll bring them to another destination or vice versa. But nothing larger than that. No commercial vehicles, no tractor trailers or anything like that.
Oh, and the cars are in this vehicle?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
They transport drivers.
Oh, good. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't explain myself properly.
That's a relief. Yeah, our streets are very crowded, especially 12th is becoming a major poodoo problem. People double park and narrow.
You know, I was talking to Matt, you know, we were doing similar exercise in Boston, and that was the #1 concern. They had tractor trailers through the neighborhoods, and although that use was not a rental facility, it's certainly understandable that does cause some angst to the community.
Mm-hmm.
But we would occasionally expect, you know, a tow truck or something like that, just the nature of the business.
Yep.
Just to make sure that we're not over promising on the vehicles that might be at this site.
Yeah.
But you're not anticipating any sort of maintenance facility there. This is strictly rental, pickup, drop off.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned it's an interim use. Is it 1 year? Is it 5 years? What's the ballpark you're looking at?
I
think that's. Go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Avis is working on entering a lease with the landlord, and we can't speak to the landlord's future plans. You know, at some point, maybe redevelop, we don't know, but I think that the goal is to use this facility until that point.
Okay.
And Cedric, could you speak to how this use would be renewed, over time, or reviewed or renewed over time?
Right. So with the use permits, we typically schedule reviews for them. Typically for the first year after it operates, we bring it back for county board review. We also do the outreach to the community. So if you identify any problems or issues, you have the opportunity at that time to opine on the matter and to make your concerns heard. As well as in between that, you can contact staff, whether it be myself or zoning enforcement, to make sure that the use permit standards and conditions are adhered to. And so that's typically how it works. If we identify any issues, we'll probably bring it back on the shorter review cycle. Those types of things. If we don't identify any issues, we'll probably just renew it without any further county board review. But that doesn't mean that the use permit goes away. If there are any issues that are identified, the county board always has the right to call a use permit for public review. So that's typically how it works. And so once they have a use permit, they're beholden to it, and they always, and the county board and the public always has the right to review it and hold them accountable to the conditions that are approved and agreed to.
And Cedric, as part of this approval, are we proposing the use to discontinue it at a fixed number of years unless extended by the county board?
No, not at this time. Although it is an interim use, as Matt stated, the county had to beholden to the property owner when they anticipate to redevelop. And so, we don't know when or how that will happen. But again, with the initial use permit review, we had the opportunity to look at that. Maybe in the next year, the property owner comes up and says, "Hey, I have a plan that I want to do," and it still may be some time out until they get to the phase where they're at demolition and stuff like that. And then, of course, it will take time for AVIS to move their facility. So. Again, as Matt said, we don't have a particular time frame for it, but the use permits hold them to a standard that the community it has an expectation that they operate to, and so you have that there.
Go ahead. Cedric, that's very helpful, and raises another question. Somewhere in the contract is a grace period, set period for if it has to be terminated for whatever reason, primarily because it's going to be redeveloped. AVIS has X amount of time to get things out of there.
I think that's a private matter between the landlord and AVIS, but maybe Matt is privy to some lease negotiations that they have.
No, not at this point.
And I think given the county planning process, from the time the owner of the property comes up with a development plan until they actually start demolition, that's a good long chunk of time.
It could be years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will be well aware
some
of
of the
it, will be
projects.
involved with it.
Yeah,
Right.
and you look at some of the projects, like Americana, that's been a couple of years already in the making. So this isn't going to happen overnight.
And it's a big project.
Yeah. A similar question following up on the timeline. I was through 2600 Richmond Highway this morning, and that looks like it's pretty much ready to go. And this doesn't sound like a lot of build out to get started. What's your timeline once you get approval? Is it a pretty quick process to get up and running?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of work to do in the building. Ron's got prefab counters that go in. We're gonna need some furniture for, you know, people to have a break area or things like that. But no, there's not much any construction or anything really.
Yeah, and any delay would
Yeah.
be, the delay would just be permitting from Arlington and amending the C of O. That would be the longest timeline in terms of us getting running. It's
Fabricating signs and stuff.
Yeah, we can be up and running right away. It's waiting for the permits and the amended C of O.
Similarly, on the economic impact side of it, the proposal talks about the possibility of housing up to 250 cars in each building, so about 500 cars at maximum. About how many of those will be registered and paying personal property taxes in Arlington County, and how many people do you anticipate employing to run these operations?
Well, generally, cars come in and out of each city or state. Like we allow customers to take cars, you know, from any locations to other locations. So this would add about, I would say it's going to add about 150 to 200 cars for this area. They all start in the city. You know, again, they could be dispersed elsewhere at that point. But I would say that the fleet size of that one facility would be somewhere in that range.
Okay. And then they could end up, you know, in New Jersey, New York, wherever, but they're at least their home base is Arlington.
Their home, correct. Yes.
You want to speak to?
Yeah. So the employee end, it would be a operator who would probably have somewhere to 4 to 6 employees, and then we would have a few other employees that would clean the cars. Probably same area, another 4 to 6. So somewhere around 8 to 12, I think, and then a supervisor on top of that. At least at one, maybe more, as depends how busy it gets.
Will you you talked about cleaning the cars. You also going to set up a car wash facility there?
No, not at this point, just vacuums.
I don't think I have any other questions. I mean, it sounds like a pretty straightforward project. Pam, any other questions?
Yeah, perhaps one final one. How difficult is it to get in and out of the building that they have to go through? Is there security or anything, or you just walk right in?
So the lobby will have a guard from the property owner.
Okay.
He or she sits in the lobby there. There's a desk. We would have our own separate person monitoring the cars in and out of the building. So we don't have, you know, people wandering that don't belong. That'll be, you know, whatever hours of operations, we'll have somebody there for that. I think the property owner has somebody there 24/7.
Okay.
And then it's stairs and elevator access down to P1 where your counter will be?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I think if nobody else has any questions or comments or concerns, this will conclude this meeting. I thank everybody for coming on their lunchtime. They got about 20 more minutes. If you have a lunch break, drop something down. I know I am. So I appreciate everybody for their comments and questions and responses as well. So with that, concludes this meeting. I will note that you know that, you know, these applications are intended to go for the board at the March hearing on March 18th. Tentatively scheduled for the consent agenda unless something significant arises. So you know, we'll be waiting to hear an official feedback from the Civic Association, but we'll be moving ahead with completing the report and getting it out on the street in the next week or two.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much
All
for
right.
hosting this. This is very helpful. Take
All
care.
right, you're welcome. Thank
Well,
you.
thank
Take
you
care,
all.
everybody.
Have a good day.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.